Hello, Mr. Johnson here, and today we are talking about the art element of value. So let's take a look at what value is and all the ways that it can be used to create amazing works of art. If you're one of my students, make sure you have your sketchbook and a pencil and even some of your drawing tools because we're going to be using them at the end of this video. So let's take a look at this awesome video that shows all about the element of value. Take a look. Design Dojo is awesome, by the way. The videos are great.
The element of value.
Mm.
Value refers to the lightness or darkness of a given object,
Yes.
area, or color. In grayscale, this grayscale quality makes determining a value a bit tricky. Stay with me. Behold the color spectrum and see how a fully saturated yellow is much lighter than a fully saturated blue. So to help us quantify just exactly how light or dark something is, artists traditionally use a 9-step scale of light to dark, where white is 1 and black is 9. 9 steps allows values to be comfortably grouped into 3 categories of highlights, midtones, and shadows. When bright highlights and deep shadows are put next to each other, this is known as contrast, which is essential for identifying objects, particularly for the legibility of type. In painting and illustration, complex work is often simplified through the creation of a value study. This allows the artist to dial in the proportions and composition first, before dealing with the challenges of color which are overlaid afterward. To create a sense of value, there is a range of techniques, including the use of a gradient, halftone pattern, swelling line, crosshatch, and dapple.
There are others which we'll
And there
look
it
at in a
is,
minute.
the remarkable element of value.
Awesome. Okay, so value is so important when creating artworks because, like the video says, it's what creates contrast. And contrast is one of the things that I always look for in a drawing or a painting because it pops. It draws the eye together. When you have light and dark areas together, whether it's with color, bright and dull, right, yellows and deep purples, or light green and dark scarlet, those together really makes the subject pop and makes your artwork awesome to look at. So right up here, you have a small value scale, which they showed in the video, that shows different values here from black to white, and then a gradient scale, which is that slow fade of values from black to white. So the value scale is individual boxes, all shaded with different values, but a gradient is a slow fade. And then at the bottom, it shows how values used with color. So a tint is adding white to a color, like it's done with this orangey red here. A shade is when you add black to a color. It takes this blue to a deep navy to a midnight blue to black. And a tone is when you add gray to a color. So if you want a color to be duller, right, not as saturated, you can add gray to it. So there are so many different ways you can shade drawings, and shading is what adds value. So we don't mean value as in what something is worth or how much it costs, but value just in the light and dark tones used in the drawing. You always want a range of values. If an artwork only has 1 or 2 values in it, it's going to be flat and it's not going to pop. You want a wide range of values, all different shades of grays from white to black. So here are some different types of shading, right? Hatching is when you use lines that are all perpendicular. So here, right, this sphere has been shaded with these small straight lines that are up and down. Could be done with a pencil or a pen or a marker. And the closer the lines are together, the darker the area appears. It's not that these lines are darker than these, but that they're closer together. They fill in more. They create the sense of a deeper volume there. Stippling is using all little dots, and it's the same philosophy as hatching, where the dots are far apart, something looks lighter. When the dots are closer together, something appears darker. I think stippling is beautiful. It does take a bit of time. So if you're not patient, it's not fun, but it is a really beautiful result. Smudging, right, is done where after you shade in different values with a pencil, you can take anything from a napkin, a paper towel, a little piece of tissue, and rub that over the pencil, usually in a circular motion. And all that does is that pushes the graphite from the pencil into the fibers of the paper and creates a smoother surface. Now, the blending stick that you have with your drawing tools is a great tool for smudging. It's what I use all the time because it keeps your hands clean, and you can use the piece of sandpaper to clean it and sharpen it so if it gets too filled with graphite, wipe it on the sandpaper, clean again. Now, cross-hatching is similar to hatching, but it uses lines in parallel and perpendicular directions. So you have lines that overlap and crisscross. So it's not little X's, but it's lines that go across in one way and then across in an opposite way. So you can see that with cross-hatching, and curved hatching is just that those lines are rounded instead of being straight, right? So cross-hatching, the lines are up and down and left to right, horizontal and vertical, but the curved lines, they make curved motions. And then scribbling or scumbling is when you just take that pen or pencil and move it around in circular motions to create your values. So here again, you've got lots of different examples of stippling, that's dots, the scumbling or the scribbling, it's that little scribble motion. They call it shading here, but that's the softer gradient, right? Smudging, cross-hatching. There's so many different ways that you can create value in an artwork. Now, I want to just show you this circle over on the right that's been shaded to resemble a three-dimensional sphere. So the only drawing here, right, is a circle shape and a line across the center to create a surface that it's sitting on and a background. Everything else is created by value. So you can see all the steps of the value scale here. There are 10 in this one. From bright white, which is the lightest part of the drawing, this little highlight up here, to very light gray, right, darker gray, this medium gray here, the darkest gray, and this deep shadow, and then the cast shadow at the bottom. And then even look at the background, right? In order to make this pop, behind the lightest area, they shaded the background the darkest. So the background is the opposite of the subject, and that creates an amazing illusion, right, of three-dimensionality in the drawing. There's so much contrast because this light edge is against the super dark background, and the opposite here, the dark part here against this light surface. It's amazing what adding value through shading can do. So let's take a look at a few artworks that use this. This is Drawing Hands by M.C. Escher, where he has created the illusion that two drawings are drawing themselves or each other or something. It's awesome. So what you have are line drawings of the collar and sleeve that turn into value drawings of the hands. So look at what a difference you get from the line drawings that make up the sleeve to these hands that have an incredible range of values, from dark blacks in the shadows to all shades of gray on the surface, and then white and really light grays that make up the highlights, right? You can see one finger from another in this top hand because they're shaded dark gray, and then they've used this light line to delineate the fingers. The hand on the bottom, the texture on the back of the hand, right? All the veins, right, and the wrinkles in the knuckles are all created just with value, just different shades of gray to make those effects. And then it uses that stippling effect in the background to create this really cool texture. What an amazing way to show shades of gray from white to black. So much value in this drawing. Now, here for something really different. This is the cover to Dark Captain Marvel. It's drawn by illustrator Mark Brooks from Marvel Comics. This just came out a few months ago. It's a beautiful illustration. It shows Captain Marvel going evil, defeating the Avengers. That's not the important part. What I want to point out is the amazing use of value that Mark Brooks uses in every area of this artwork. There is not a single part of this drawing that is a solid color. Every single thing has multiple shades, right, multiple values of each color. So look at that sash that's around evil Captain Marvel's waist. It has this medium red tone, lighter red highlights, darker red shadow areas, and then super dark areas here where the folds come in. Look at Thor's cape, all the different values of red in there to make it look like it's folded and overlapping each other. Even Thor's arm and his muscles and veins here are all shown with multiple values of his skin tone, from really bright white to this darker, ochre color. Same thing with She-Hulk and the shades of green to make Scarlet Witch's headpiece look shiny. He has dark red areas next to really light highlights. Even Captain America's uniform go from really light blue, almost white, down to almost black in the shadowed areas. So this is a great example of how to use value to create visual interest, to create a sense of depth and texture. And so when you're doing a drawing, please don't keep any area just one solid color. That's so boring. Look at examples like this of how you can use different range of values to create light and darks in your drawing. It's just awesome. And Mark Brooks is an amazing illustrator. I love his stuff. All right, so here's what I would like you to do in your sketchbook for this task. You're going to create 3 value scales just like the ones on the screen, so you can even pause this and leave this up and then copy these into your sketchbook on the value page. Use any of the shading techniques for the top 2, a 5-step value scale and a 10-step value scale. So you can do this just with shading with a pencil. You can do it with hatching or cross-hatching or stippling or scumbling, any of those that you like. The third one, use the blending stump to create a shaded gradation, right, from smooth fade from dark to light. So in these top 2, what you want to look at are the main shades of value from light to dark. So in the first one, there are only 5. So you've got black, and use your pencil to just fill that area in as solid as you can. There are different ways to create the value here. If you press harder, you get a darker value. And if your lines are closer together, they're a darker value. So, but make the first box the darkest. Then the last box should stay the white of the paper, add nothing there. Then the 3 in the middle, right, get progressively lighter. So a little bit less value in the second one, halfway between white and black in the center, and then really light gray, barely any pencil, right, in that fourth one. The 10-step value scale, it adds an extra step in between each of these boxes. So if you notice that the differences are very subtle, so as you work on it, make sure that if you step back or you squint your eyes, that you can see that progression from dark to light. You want to make sure that you don't go out of order or that any of the steps aren't too jarring. For the last one, use the blending stump to fill in any of the pencil marks. So as you're shading this value scale with a pencil, vary your pressure. Press harder all the way on the left, and then just loosen up the pressure. Just don't press as hard when you get to the right. That will help create that lightness in the value. If it gets too dark, just use an eraser, pick up some of the pencil. And then once you've done that, take your blending stump, use some circular motions to go over that. And what that will do is help smooth out your value scale. Hopefully, you can complete all of these in a short amount of time. If you need any help, please ask me on Google Classroom, and I will see you again soon.